Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there tonight and certainly had yourselves a fantastic day. And I hope you all are having a great start to your weekend. Speaking of your weekend, we got a lot of weather on the way for a good portion of the eastern U.S. We have a severe weather risk that we're going to break down, and even a winter storm portion of this storm system that I think could dump a pretty significant amount of snow depending on where you are. So we need to figure all this out. We're going to get detailed on each individual area that the worst weather could impact. And chances are I won't miss your state if you live in the eastern U.S. But of course, if I do, let me know if you got a question about your state. If I didn't mention it specifically, it's probably because you're not going to see a whole lot of significant weather with this system. But if you got any questions, guys, don't hesitate to put them in the comments, and I'll probably get to them sometime tomorrow morning. But yeah, we're going to get very detailed on this, talk about what's changed. I don't think a whole lot has changed since this morning's video, but we will bring you the detailed information in this video. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and I just want to say thank y'all for the kind comments you guys have left over the last 24 hours. I made that post in the community tab on my YouTube, and you guys have just been incredibly nice. Thank y'all for taking the time out your day to say just nice things. That certainly makes me smile, and I read every single one of my comments. I take pride in that. And I certainly hope that if this channel gets, bigger one day, that I'll never be too busy to not read through all the comments. I know it gets hectic sometimes, but that's something that's very important to me with this channel. And definitely love and appreciate every one of you folks for supporting my passion and what I do here. So enough of that. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rocking and rolling here. So we'll start off by looking at the radar. We got a good area of snow. There has been some heavy snow up here in Canada. There's a guy that lives up here, and he's been posting all day. It's been blizzard type conditions just across the North Dakota line up here in Canada, but a lot of blowing snow up here in North Dakota. Let me know what you're seeing this morning. I would love to know. This is one piece of energy, and then here comes our first low that's already developed to bring in moisture across northern Missouri, riding into Iowa, and we will get a little bit of back end snow from this in the far, maybe northern sections of Wisconsin, like the western UP of Michigan, as we work our way into tomorrow. But the bigger portion of this storm really gets cranked up tomorrow. We do have a little bit of moisture, I would say east of the Mississippi River in Mississippi, western Tennessee, riding up into western Kentucky, and there's some moisture moving over northern portions of Florida this evening, but not a whole lot of crazy weather going on by any means. We do have some snow falling along the Front Range. Let me know what you're seeing in Denver. If you're getting any kind of accumulations, if you live south of town, like an hour or two south of town, chances are you're picking up more snow. But you could even get some snow further into the eastern plains of Colorado also. But that's what's going on right now. Let's talk about watches, warnings, advisories. Really focus on the Northeast. Tons of flood watches up. And if you look here in this kind of dark brownish, almost getting to a yellowish color, that is high wind watches. So they're already preparing people up here for the very strong winds that's on the way with this storm system. And we'll talk about that in this video also. But if you notice here in the teal colors, that's winter storm watches. We'll see if these extend a little bit further south. But I do think that this could potentially be winter storm warning criteria snow. There will be a lot of winter weather advisories also. But look at Long Island. High wind watches up in preparation of this big time wind event on the way. Ongoing winter weather advisories across areas of the Dakotas, northwest Minnesota. Wind advisories also across sections of the upper Midwest. And we even have some winter weather advisories that are extended all the way into the panhandle of Oklahoma, one county, and then 4 counties in the panhandle of Texas. So you guys could see a little bit of light accumulations with this system that comes down later on in the time period. So let's take this broad look, and we're just going to look at the Euro here because really we're going to focus in on zooming in on these individual sections. So a broad look at this storm. This is the latest 18Z Euro, and this is how it develops. There's that low. We're waking up. We're getting into tomorrow morning. This is around Saturday morning, tomorrow morning. Here goes the low about to ride right over Lake Michigan. This is a warm storm. You could get a wintry mix potentially up here in the UP and Michigan, but this is a pretty warm storm. I know my guy Steven up here, he's always commenting. I appreciate you very much. He's mentioned that, you're starting to see the ground up here again. The snow's melting. Not sure if we're going to get another big winter storm up here to kind of make it your white Christmas that you're used to up here in the UP, but we'll see what happens. It's only December 8th. There's been a lot of if you follow me on Twitter, on social media, you guys know I'm very active. I'm much more active on Twitter or X, whatever they call it these days, than I am Facebook. But my personality really shows on the app, and it's a great way to follow along. But in the weather community, there's all doom and gloom about how they think winter's over, but it's only December 8th. So December was always supposed to be above average temperature wise, but anyways, I think people are just kind of chomping at the bit a little bit because last winter was so snowless for a lot of the eastern U.S. But anyways, let's keep rolling, getting a little off track here. We're getting into Saturday afternoon. I know this just looks like green down here, but we're going to take a look at the latest HRRR model. There's actually storms from Louisiana all the way up to Kentucky. But really, I'm showing you this as we're getting into Sunday morning, good old rain for areas of the Appalachian Mountains. Rain moving into Pennsylvania, West Virginia. But as we start to get into I would say Sunday evening, some of this rain does try to switch to some snow in West Virginia, but I can tell you the models are, and I'm kind of giving you some updates on what's changed. The models are kind of in the process of kind of trending backwards when it comes to these heavy snowfall totals. The latest Euro, it just really isn't that aggressive with the snow, especially in the southern sections of the Appalachian Mountains, but does change the rain to snow for the higher elevations of North Carolina and Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia. And then we keep this going, and then there's that area of accumulating snow that develops in the higher elevations of Virginia, West Virginia, Western Maryland, and you keep this going. And we'll get a closer look at this here in a second, guys. But getting into Monday morning, there's that snow for the interior Northeast where they're the most confident that accumulating snow will fall. And then maybe some back end northwest flow, a little bit of energy off the Great Lakes. So that's a broad look at this storm system from tonight all the way through Monday morning, okay? Let's talk about the severe weather risk with this first. One thing you'll notice if you watch this morning's video, it's kind of trended the slight risk a little smaller now. So I think the slight risk, I believe, extended all the way to Houston this morning. Now it's just barely hanging on in Texas. That's good news. The severe weather threat is shrinking somewhat. But right now you have a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather from the far eastern sections of Texas all the way up to Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'm watching Kentucky and areas of Tennessee as a area that could be uptrending somewhat. I'll talk about why here in a second. What about the tornado threat? There's a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in this brown area, 2% risk in the green. We'll see if this uptrends. Do I think it's going to uptrend? I think it's possible. A lot of times these systems, they'll uptrend at the last second, the day of. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it won't or whatever, but I'll kind of list the reasons of why it could and why it won't here in a second. But the wind threat, a 15% risk in the yellow area of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's around 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given location in this area. Okay, we look at hail, 15% risk of hail. That means there's a 15% risk of 1 inch in diameter or larger hail within this yellow area. Okay, so that's the risk criteria with this. Let's talk about the evolution of this storm. Let's look at the latest HRRR model. I can tell you if you live in Houston, even areas of Louisiana, this does not look as bad as it did maybe a couple runs back. But the OOZ HRRR model is about to run. We'll see what it looks like. But all we got is the 18Z right now. And we're getting into tomorrow about midday, and there's no storms really. A little bit of convection popping off in Louisiana. There's some storms showing up around New Orleans, Baton Rouge. But you look back here in Houston, and there ain't a whole lot going on. Shreveport to Monroe, no storms get going. And I think that's just because the wind field that provides a lot of lift kind of gets displaced from this area. You don't have a lot of lift for thunderstorms in this area. So we need to watch these trends. But of course, you look at Mississippi, you got some storms firing up. We'll talk about Mississippi here in a second. But you go on and take this all the way through, guys. Maybe a thin line of storms, couple thin lines of storms could make its way through southeast Louisiana. This is, if you're confused about the time frame at all, when we're in Central Time, back this up 1 hour. That's where we are. So this is 9 p.m. tomorrow, okay, tomorrow night. But, all in all, nothing really happens if you look at the latest short-range model, guys. That doesn't mean that's not going to happen, but that's the latest, what I would consider one of the more reliable short-range model guidance being the HRRR model. Some people would disagree with that, but every short-range model guidance has its downfalls and has its, things that it's good at. So let's go on and look at the Deep South as a whole. Start off Saturday morning. I think we'll already be dealing with some storms, some elevated storms up here in northeast Arkansas, the Boot Hill, Missouri. I think some storms will already be ongoing. But as we are getting into tomorrow afternoon, it's around 3 or 4 p.m., these are the storms you got to worry about. So we'll stop it here. All right, Jackson, right down here, north of, kind of up interstate, what is that? Interstate 55. I'm looking at Google Maps if you don't know, if you're wondering why I'm looking downward. But Oxford up to Memphis, points east. We watch for these storms. They look like little discrete storms, and there will be ingredients here. Definitely will be the moisture content in the atmosphere, those thermodynamics. There will be a wind field in place, favorable kinematics. So these storms could produce right into here. Okay, you got storms rolling across Jackson, Tennessee, Dyersburg, heading towards Clarksville, heading towards Nashville. And then we stop it here. It's around 6, 7 p.m. Sun's starting to set. We got storms all the way down here in southern Mississippi, storms around Florence, Alabama. And this continues to knock on the door of the Cumberland Plateau. And then these start to congeal together. These storms could be dangerous, guys. A damaging wind threat, hail threat, and a tornado threat embedded with these storms. We stop it here. All right. Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Florence, Huntsville, Alabama, Meridian, Mississippi, up to Nashville. You guys are experiencing some strong to severe storms. And this continues. You start to lose the tilt with this main area of low pressure heading on off. And these storms kind of begin to slow down. And then we start to get to just after midnight, and it's still storming in areas of Alabama. And then they start to move into Atlanta, the Appalachian Mountains, and then maybe another round develops behind it with the initial cold front that moves through. And we continue to keep this going. And look at the snow shower Sunday afternoon that tries to filter in behind it. That's going to be something to watch in the later HRRR model runs. But as far as the updraft velocity swath with this, guys, this tries to tell us where these storms could rotate. And it does like a little bit further north. And the reason it likes a little bit further north is because that's where the better low-level jet will be, because of where the low pressure is tracking. So we'll have to watch this. You're lacking thermodynamics up here, meaning your dew points will probably be lower. Moist sector not as kind of entrenched into the area up in Tennessee and Kentucky. I'll show you what I mean here in a second with that. But it does show some spinners down here, Alabama, Mississippi, for sure. Now, you start to look up into Kentucky, Tennessee, and there's that first little round that moves and starts to affect southern Illinois up to Evansville, Indiana. Big plume of heavy rain moves in. And then we start to get into tomorrow afternoon. And there's these storms. I mean, they're going all the way up, guys, to, Louisville, Cincinnati, Lexington, Frankfort. You guys, even back into, western sections of Kentucky, you're dealing with some storms. And you continue to keep this going. And we got to watch these storms right into here. Clarksville, Tennessee, up into Bowling Green, up into Lexington. This does look like just a line of storms, but this is kind of the area I'm watching right in here that could have the best overlapping ingredients when you kind of put kinematics and thermodynamics together. So I do want to watch this area of storms in Tennessee and Kentucky, and then this heads on out, and then look what happens behind it. I'm very interested in this. This is about midday Sunday. Cold air filters in behind us. The rain is changing to snow in the Appalachian Mountains, and then you got flurries and snow showers as far south as Nashville. And look at all this snow shower activity in Indiana, Kentucky. So that is something we need to watch for sure. And then you look at the updraft velocity swath up here, and there it is. It shows a pretty stout signal in Kentucky and Tennessee. Even along, the border of Indiana, Kentucky, all the way up into Cincinnati. Okay, so it is something we need to watch for a better threat for tornadoes right into here. We'll wake up and see what the discussion is and if they uptrend anything. If they will, or if they do, I would say it'll be a little bit further north, but we'll see what happens, okay? And, the reason that I'm more concerned about the tornado threat, maybe a little bit further north, is because this is the low-level jet. These are winds 850 millibars in the atmosphere, about a mile up in the atmosphere, 4,000 to 6,000 feet, okay? Start off tomorrow morning. The low-level winds are ripping about a mile above your head up here in Indiana, but this moves on off. If we can get the moving here. And then here it is. There's a low-level jet increasing over areas of Tennessee, over areas of Kentucky, and then you start to get that low-level jet that's pushing around 40 to 50 knots around Saturday afternoon. So you notice back here in Louisiana, even Texas, you don't have much in the way of any kind of favorable winds aloft, creating any kind of lift. It's really maximized right over the Mid-South, and that's why I think maybe the better tornado threat could be right into this region. So we'll see what happens. Better kinematics right up there, but you're probably lacking better thermodynamics in this region. And then this turns into a very impressive wind event for the Northeast. But moving and looking at the dew points, okay, which is a thermodynamic, I'm not going to talk much on Cape, but in this case, let's just talk about the moisture return. Dew points get all the way into the low 60s. Very briefly up into Kentucky, maybe a little bit kind of almost like a triple point as met. A little bit better moisture down here in Tennessee. So those storms will be rolling, and behind it, immediately trailing it, is some very dry air behind this cold front. Better moisture down here, but not as good as kinematics down here. Somewhere in the middle it'll meet, where you have the decent moisture levels, dew points in the 60s, and then the kinematics, the favorable winds aloft that support kind of the overlapping severe weather threat in this region. But let's talk about the snow. I know a lot of people are interested about the snow. If we look at the GFS, we'll start off Sunday about midday. Just good old-fashioned rain. Someone asked in the comments, what's good old-fashioned rain? What does that even mean? I don't know. It's just something I say. But getting into Sunday afternoon, it's raining across even the higher elevations, the mountains of the southern Alps. Then it begins to switch to snow based off the GFS. And a lot of people are wondering, Mitch, why don't you show us the NAM? I am not a big fan of the NAM at all, guys. I'm really not. It blows my mind how people post the 12 km NAM and get so excited about it, because we call it getting NAMmed in the weather community, where basically it'll show just a ton of snow over your area, and then the next run it's gone. We call it being NAMmed. And a lot of people always get psyched out about it. They get so excited about it, but then it always pulls the rug out from under us. So I'm not even going to show it because I don't believe it. But we get into Sunday evening, rain starts to switch to some snow in the higher elevations. Could get a burst of heavier snow as we get into overnight Sunday into Monday morning, and then it heads on out. We look at let's back this up. Let's see what the European shows with this. And, not a whole lot different. Shows some back end snow late Sunday evening and Sunday night. And shows definitely more heavier snow in southwest Virginia, higher elevations of Virginia and West Virginia up here. As far as the snowfall forecast from the National Weather Service, they've actually downtrended it. Maybe an inch or two of snow in some of these higher elevations of the Smokies, Roan Mountain, just the favored areas. But you start to get into West Virginia, a few inches of snow is possible. But this could uptrend sometime tomorrow. We'll watch. But as of now, not even expecting that big of an event for West Virginia. It's actually trended a little bit downward. GFS for like Pennsylvania and all the surrounding states. There was some big runs for this area a couple days ago. Things, have remained about the same or even downtrend a little bit. But, we get into the middle of the night, Sunday into Monday morning. Rain switches to snow for a period in western Maryland, obviously in West Virginia and Virginia. And then right in the heart of Pennsylvania. Could get an area of heavier snow into the Catskills, maybe even switch to snow in the Poconos. I really do think it will. And I really want to watch this favorite area in northeast Pennsylvania. If anybody in Pennsylvania is going to get some accumulating snow, it's probably going to be in northeast Pennsylvania. So we'll see what happens there. But it does show it trying to switch to snow in northern New Jersey. And we keep this going, some lingering moisture behind it. Now you look at the European. What does the European show? And here it comes. And it does like a more aggressive scenario of heavier snow. So we're getting into the wee hours of the morning, Monday morning. And it's snowing pretty heavily in the middle of Pennsylvania. State College getting snow. Staying mainly rain in like Harrisburg, Scranton, you're switching to heavy snow. Even some light snow back in Pittsburgh potentially. I think Morgantown could get some snow in West Virginia, but we keep this going. And like I said, it really likes this area right up here in northeast Pennsylvania. It does. Middletown, New York could be right on the fringe of rain and snow. I think once the rain and snow line kind of gets set up, it ain't going to budge a whole lot with this. but we'll see. National Weather Service forecast. I mean, I think more snow than this could fall in northeast Pennsylvania. I really do. But you get into the hills right here, PA, a few inches of snow is possible. Northern PA, a couple inches, maybe an inch or two, maybe around State College. But you look at the European run, and it's definitely going for a lot more heavier snowfall totals up here in northeast PA. So we'll see what happens. Moving a little bit further up the board here in New England. GFS was the GFS show. I can tell you the GFS and the Euro sort of on the same page up here, but we start to get to the middle of the night Sunday. Rain starts to switch to snow in the Adirondacks, the Catskills, then bang, switches some pretty heavy snow. Then you start to get all out winter storm conditions in like Vermont, southern sections of the Adirondacks. Even starts to switch to snow in the Berkshires potentially. We'll just have to see about that. Western Maine, northern New Hampshire, switching to heavy snow as we're waking up Monday morning. This continues. And then maybe this low begins to deepen again. And one thing that's interesting on the latest GFS is it throws in enough back precipitation for it to get thrown back into cold air. So you do switch to a period of snow on the latest GFS for Monday afternoon in like Boston and southern New England. But this is an all-out raging winter storm up here in Maine, maybe the biggest one of the season, and heads on off. So I would say the GFS has trended differently with the evolution of this for the Northeast, especially Boston points north. But, you look at the European and what it shows with the evolution of this storm. Here it goes, coming in, heavy snow. A little bit further west, it really rocks central New York State. GFS, heavier snows earlier on, a little bit further east. So this is dumping a lot of heavy snow right in the middle of New York State. Starts to snow heavily up here in northern sections of Vermont. Burlington could get a lot of snow from this potentially. And then this continues, pretty much an all-out winter storm in New York State, in these sections right here. It's a flat-out warmer system because it's further west with this low pressure. Therefore, areas of Maine and New Hampshire do not get as much snow from this. In fact, it's a huge difference in Maine. And as far as I would say, Maine is a state that's a big time struggle right now. The GFS and the Euro, are totally different. I just showed you a GFS and then switching to a raging snowstorm. Euro only keeps snow in the extreme western, northwestern sections of Maine. So it's very interesting. But you look at the National Weather Service forecast just through Monday evening, and it makes me think that they're kind of thinking it's going to be more towards the Euro, which is a warmer storm, which would put more snow back into areas further west of New York State, but not as much snow, and doesn't give you it's not giving you much of a chance here in like Boston and western Maine. But it's crazy. You look at the GFS forecast with this, totally different than the National Weather Service forecast. Dumps an all-out winter storm over Maine. Doesn't like the idea, and I don't think this is the right one. Let's make sure. Why does it always do? Okay, it ain't much different, but likes to dump all the snow in Maine for sure. So those wind gusts. I think we're going to get power outages along the Jersey Shore. 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. Long Island, my buddy, I know he goes by Mr. Storm, that comments a lot on my YouTube. Appreciate you, man. It is definitely going to be a windstorm out there on Long Island, along the coastal regions of Connecticut, Rhode Island, all of eastern Mass, and just your typical Cape Cod, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard areas. There was going to potentially be some hurricane force wind gusts out here. And this is going to be a significant wind event for you folks. It'll be kind of like equivalent to a pretty strong nor'easter. But please be aware of this because you're going to get a lot of rain. And this is potentially going to pull down some trees. Of course, Mount Washington doing its thing right into here. But, the down east areas of Maine, the potential is there for 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts. Okay, it's going to be very, very, very windy. And I'm going to do this on the fly. I know I said that I would talk about my folks up here in Canada, and I'll be honest, working my way through the video, I totally brain farted that I didn't have, panels pulled up for you folks. So I'm going to do this on the fly here, if I can here. In fact, I think we only can, let's look at the European, okay? And I do apologize, but, I'm just going to kind of wing this here like really quick for you folks. And here it is. Here's some winds, and I know y'all go by. I believe y'all go by kilometers per hour up here. And here it is. And let's actually look at this. Max wind gusts. You're pushing down here. If you look right here, they're going for about, and I don't have my maps up here. I'm sorry. This is really sloppy here at the end. Yarmouth. Good old Yarmouth. You're good. You can get 100 to 120 not miles per hour, kilometers per hour wind gusts. You start to get in New Brunswick, the Bay of Fundy, St. John. 100 to 115 kilometer per hour wind gusts is quite possible. But definitely stay tuned to your local people in these regions, because you compare this with the euro. Let's see if it would. I think I was already on the euro. You compare this with the GFS, guys. Remember, the GFS is further east, so it wants to dump much more stronger winds for everybody in Atlantic Canada, and the winds are much stronger in these regions right here, so please be careful with this. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll go over this again in the morning, and you guys have a great Friday night. Talk to you soon.